broadcast, and I have done that now.
All right, sounds great. We just wait a few seconds and then we will. All right, in the interest of time, we are going to begin. I know people are joining, as I can see on the webinar. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to CSML Virtual Speaker Series. This is Leila Naderi, Director of Partnership Development at Alliant International University. Thank you for joining us today. I hope all of you and your loved ones are safe and healthy. At Alliant International University, it's our mission to connect, educate, and empower community for positive changes in the world. And during this global crisis, we want to stay true to our mission. We want to be part of solution. We want to build bridges between the leaders of today and tomorrow. And above all, we want to be in service to you. So we are partnering with outstanding organizations and thought leaders and experts for these webinar series to provide educational resources that empower our community by focusing on the solutions. Before I announce the agenda for today, I would like to inform you that we are recording this webinar, and the recording will be shared with you via email. You can also submit your questions through Q&A box in the webinar, and your questions will be responded towards the end of webinar. So for agenda today, Dr. Rachna Kumar, Dean of California School of Management and Leadership, will begin with her opening remarks. Then we will invite our speaker, Mr. Rafael Castellanos, Commissioner at Port of San Diego, to deliver his speech. We are truly honored and grateful that Commissioner Castellanos accepted our invite to share his wisdom with our community. And he has selected a really interesting and inspiring topic. The topic of his speech is Blue Economy, Innovative Sustainable Practices for Economic Growth in Times of Crisis. After his speech, we will open for Q&A, and of course at the end we will have final notes and announcement. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Dean Rachna Kumar.
Thank you, Dr. Naderi. And so good evening to everyone with us today. This is my pleasure and honor to invite you, to welcome you here, but also my honor to invite the speaker, Commissioner Castellanos. Before we go to the next part, which is the main part for today, I wanted to take a few minutes introducing to you our school, which is California School of Management and Leadership. As Dean for the school, I'm very proud to be part of Alliant. Alliant has over 100 years of history, and it is an accredited university. We have 5 schools. We have a School of Psychology, we have a School of Education, School of Law, and a School of Forensics and Forensic Studies. And then there is School of Management and Leadership, which is the school for which I am the dean. So within the School of Management and Leadership, we offer programs at bachelor's, master's, as well as doctoral level. We are looking at programs that allow students to learn management of technology and quantitative fields. We have new programs that we've launched in specifically this field, which brings in management and business along with technology and analytics. So we have an MS in data analytics, MS in information systems and technology, an MS in Healthcare and Analytics. We also have a bachelor's, a BS in Information Systems and Technology, and a DBA with specialization in Information and Data Science. We do offer the most standard programs, which are MBA, BS and BA. We have a PhD in leadership. So the point being that we have programs at different graduate and undergraduate levels, as well as the doctoral levels. We do have also something I wanted to bring to light, certificates. These are credit certificates. And credit certificates means that these are 9 credits. They offer graduate or undergraduate credits. 9 credits is basically 3 courses. They are short-term certificates, but they give you credits that you can take to your to degree completion at the bachelor's or graduate levels. So if you're interested in any of these programs or certificates, do contact us. Next, I have the distinct pleasure to introduce you to our speaker of the day, which is basically the highlight for today, which is what we have all gathered here for. Commissioner Rafael Castellanos was sworn in to the Board of Port Commissioners on April 15th, 2013, to represent the city of San Diego. He is the chair of the Port's Environmental Advisory Committee. He is also a partner with the law firm Solomon Minton, Cardinal Doyle and Smith, right here in San Diego, where he specializes in commercial real estate and business transactional law. His professional affiliations include service to the Board of Directors of Mana de San Diego, the San Diego La Raza Lawyers Association, and the San Diego Regional Economic Development Corporation. Rafael is a member of this California State Bar Association, the San Diego County Bar Association, and the Mexican American Business and Professional Association. He is also active in the San Diego Foundation's Business Forum on Climate Change. He was named as one of the San Diego Daily Transcript's top young attorneys in 2008, as well as in 2011, and was named in 2011 as one of San Diego's Metro Magazine's 20 Men Who Impact San Diego. He graduated from Arizona State University with a Bachelor of Arts degree, and he has earned a Juris Doctorate, as JD is from University of Chicago Law School as a Cornerstone Scholar. With this long introduction, and it is our honor to hand over to Commissioner Castellanos.
Thank you very much, Dean Kumar and Dr. Nadiri. I really appreciate the invitation to present today. I think it'll be less of a speech, a little more informal, to the extent anyone, wants to message me and, interrupt me, feel free to do so. This is an extremely interesting topic in my view, and a very timely one with respect to economic development, sustainable economic development in times of crisis, considering that from our collective point of view, I think, certainly at the Port of San Diego, we are in a very dynamic time dealing with crises of various natures. The Port of San Diego, obviously, as a coastal agency, we are dealing with climate change, extreme weather, rising sea levels, coastal erosion, and now, food supply insecurity that we're all dealing with because of COVID and the potential for not just more frequent extreme weather, but perhaps more frequent epidemics. So looking at ways to address those crises, when I think of crisis, I think of opportunity and adaptation. And that's exactly what we're doing at the Port of San Diego. And I think that's what we're all going to have to do in the economic development world if we are going to address these challenges. So I'm really happy to be with you all today and to speak about this topic that I care about a great deal. But first, I'd like to tell you a little bit about what the Port of San Diego is. Dr. Nadiri, next slide, please.
Is it okay? Is it the slide?
It did not move to the next slide.
And Dr. Nadiri, I think you're looking at the slideshow that has the notes on it, as opposed to the one we previously ran through that just had the pictures themselves.
Okay, so let me, one more time, I will test it again. My apologies. So, okay, so let's try this time. How about this time? Is it, let me take the next.
There we go. That looks
Yes.
perfect.
All right, my apologies.
Great. Okay, so what is the Port of San Diego? The Port of San Diego is a state of California special district created in 1962 to manage the tidelands around the San Diego Bay. What are the tidelands? The tidelands are the area of land between the mean high tide line and the mean low tide line, as that area was measured in the mid-19th century. So up till the end of last year, these areas on the map that you see in orange and the lighter blue, just on the coast, that was our original trust, if you will, our original land trust. At the beginning of this year, we actually also acquired into the trust the dark blue area, which is essentially the bottom of the bay, which we called the donut hole. So in total, we now have about 14,000 acres of land. About 2,400 of that is, uplands, not submerged, and the rest is submerged. We are a very unique port. When people think of ports, they frequently think of industrial ports, big container ports like the Port of Long Beach, the Port of LA. We're not like that. We are a very diverse port. There's a saying in the port business, if you've seen one port, you've seen one port. And we certainly exemplify that. We do have some cargo operations, but we also have shipbuilding operations. We have the only full service shipyard on the entire West Coast that can build, maintain, and repair naval vessels and cargo vessels. But we also have a very strong hospitality portfolio with some of the biggest hotels in the county on the waterfront. We have the San Diego Convention Center. We're getting ready to build another large convention center in Chula Vista on the bayfront. We have the biggest sports fishing fleet in the entire world. We have commercial fishing, retail, restaurants, 20 public parks. So it's a very diverse port, and it's a major economic engine for the region. Next slide, please. Here you can see our economic impact to the region over the last 7 years or so. In 2017, it was $9.4 billion. We do that without any tax revenue. We don't collect a single penny of tax revenue. We're an enterprise fund. We're a self-sustaining agency. We collect about 60% of our revenue from rent that we charge our ground tenants, these big hotels, restaurants. The shipyards are also tenants, so they all pay us rent. The rest is maritime revenue, which comes from cargo fees, cruise passenger fees, security fees, wharfage, drayage, all sorts of different fees, and a tariff for cargo vessels to come into the bay. So since our inception over 50 years ago, we have invested over $1 trillion into infrastructure around the San Diego Bay. And that's what has allowed us to become a real economic impact, a real economic engine for the region. We also contribute to about, 70,000 jobs approximately are related to the Port of San Diego in some form or fashion. About 25,000 of those jobs are working waterfront jobs. The median income in those jobs is about $70,000 a year. The median income for all jobs in the county is about $40,000 a year. So those working waterfront jobs are extremely important. We do that with a staff of about 580 people and an annual budget in this fiscal year that was originally projected to be $216 million. Now, perfect segue to crisis. We went from a projected budget of $216 million to a $30 million in our hole in our budget over the course of just a few weeks back in March and April. We are projecting a decrease in revenue of anywhere between $30 and $60 million for the next fiscal year. Certainly, it's a crisis. And because we are primarily, in many respects, a majority of our revenue comes from hospitality, as you know, restaurants and the hotels, charter, sports fishing, and pleasure cruises have been hit very, very hard. And we don't know when that's all going to come back. So we are in a time of crisis at the Port of San Diego, like everyone else around the world. But the good news is that we have been taking steps for a number of years now to diversify our portfolio, to be more innovative. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about here during the rest of this presentation. If you could please advance to the next slide. So I'm going to talk about the blue economy, which is just the fancy way of describing the ocean economy. When I was chairman of the Port District in 2018, my theme for the year was ocean optimism, which is the belief that the ocean economy, the blue economy, is one of our greatest sources of opportunity, where we have tremendous potential in the San Diego region to create more prosperity, more good jobs, and lift the standard of living for a lot of folks, and contribute to our innovation culture here in this region, which we are well known for. So the ports throughout human history have been centers of exchange, of commerce, of innovation, of exchange. So we are trying to maximize our role in that respect with respect to the blue economy. Next slide, please. So what is the blue economy? More specifically, everyone is familiar with traditional blue economy industry. I mentioned some of those already: shipbuilding and boatyards, cargo and cruise, coastal development, commercial recreation. But when we talk about innovation and the blue economy, we're talking about new and emerging blue industry. For example, underwater robotics, clean tech, weather and climate observation equipment, aquaculture, fancy word for underwater agriculture, farming, underwater farming, renewable energy, and mitigation banking, to sequester carbon and purify water and that sort of thing. So there's a whole area of emerging industries that is also the blue economy, but there are a number of barriers to entry to those industries, including access to water. There are many startup companies that have technologies that require underwater testing, yet they don't have access to the water or facilities adjacent to the water where they can develop those technologies and test them. And so there are barriers, and that's just one barrier. Next slide, please. In order to help lower those barriers to entry, in 2016, the Port of San Diego started a blue economy incubator. And this was our attempt to help accelerate startup companies in the blue economy space. And to do that, we basically decided to commit $1 million a year for 5 years to support these companies. So what does the Port of San Diego have in addition to that money? And by the way, that money we have used in a number of different ways. We have negotiated royalties from some of these companies if they successfully bring their technology to market. We have purchased equipment for them to use. We provide subject matter expertise, permitting and entitlement expertise. There are obviously many jurisdictions and permitting authorities on the California coast. We're one of them. The Coastal Commission is another. There's the Army Corps of Engineers, the State Lands Commission, the EPA, a whole basket of acronyms, if you will, that have approval authority under a number of in a number of different areas. And so our goal is to help bring these technologies to market and also obviously where we can to derive a benefit from that, and hopefully bring companies to market that will find a home at the Port of San Diego and help diversify our revenue streams. Next slide, please. So real quick, a shout out to all of the folks at the port who work on this, on these initiatives and our Blue Economy Incubator. It's a real team effort, and I have to thank the working women, men and women who support our efforts in this regard. It's a real team effort. We have environmental and land use planning. We have our maritime department, our legal teams. We have hired experts in aquaculture and blue technology, the commissioners, and everyone else who provides subject matter expertise and other types of support. I want to thank everyone, and it's important that everyone knows that it ain't easy, and it requires a lot of folks all rowing in the same direction. Next slide, please. So this is a 30,000 foot snapshot of the companies and the pilot projects that we are supporting through the incubator right now. We have about 8 companies that we've already approved and are supporting. You'll see the pie chart in the bottom right corner, which sort of breaks up the companies into the category that they're in. But we've got all sorts of different companies. We have a vessel washing company from Scandinavia that uses a new technology to clean vessels. We have a copper remediation technology, smart marina optimization, marine debris removal technology, and other bioremediation technologies. I'm going to talk about a few of those, but what you're going to see is, and then aquaculture, a couple of my favorites. But what you're going to see is that the Port of San Diego has very specifically decided that not only are we going to support blue tech and aquaculture, but we're going to focus wherever possible on technologies and industries that provide a co-benefit of sustainability and environmental stewardship. So for us, that's a win-win, and that's where our focus is. Next slide, please. So we're going to start out with the San Diego Bay Aquaculture Company, which is a fancy description for a company that is growing oysters in the bay, and they are doing it right now over in the Great Street Mole, Tuna Harbor, right next to Seaport Village, between Seaport Village and the Midway Museum, the aircraft carrier. Next slide, please. So here on the left, you see a barge, but it's actually, its technical name is a FLUPSY, which stands for a floating upweller system. This is a barge that's essentially a nursery for oysters. Here in Southern California, we benefit from having warmer water than in the Pacific Northwest, where you have large commercial oyster nursery operations. What we're doing here with this company that we've partnered with is getting the health certifications and doing a pilot project to grow oysters from oyster scratch, which are oyster larvae, which you can see the pictures of the hands there on the bottom left. Oyster larvae, when it's like the size of pepper flakes. But because of the warmer water in Southern California, we can grow those oysters to about the size of a quarter in just 3 or 4 months. And we can purchase that larva for 3 to 4 cents per larva. And then once the oyster is the size of a quarter, a juvenile oyster, we can sell it for 25 to 50 cents to nurseries in the Pacific Northwest. This particular barge has the capacity for up to 20 million juvenile oysters per year. You do the math. This is an industry that we can scale up, and it's a tremendous benefit. In the United States, we eat about 5 billion pounds of seafood every year. We import about 90% of that. We're heavily reliant on seafood imports. As we're learning right now during this pandemic, the food supply chain is very vulnerable. So anything that we can do to help support domestic production of seafood in an environmentally sustainable way is something that's extremely important and more important now than ever. And so we're really excited about this particular project. Next slide, please. Here are just a couple pictures of just over the course of 1 month, the growth that you see in each of these oysters is pretty remarkable. And by the way, oysters have the added environmental benefit of purifying water, up to 50 gallons a day per oyster, adult oyster. Next slide, please. Another project I'm very excited about is another aquaculture project is sunken seaweed. These were a couple of marine biologists from San Diego State University who decided to start a company growing culinary seaweed at the Port of San Diego. We have a demonstration project. Next slide, please. Here you can see, well, next slide. I'd like to go to the next slide. All right. So in a very small water area at the end of Grape Street, just west of Little Italy on the waterfront, we have a pier there called the Grape Street Pier. Right off that pier in an area that's probably, I'd say, 20 to 30 feet by 50 feet, we are engaged in 3D seaweed farming. So these vertical water columns where we have cages and lines where a variety of different seaweeds can be grown. In addition, we've added shellfish baskets so that we can maximize the types of seaweed and shellfish that we can grow. Same idea here, get the health certifications, find out what works, how to grow it, bring it to scale. Multiple benefits from seaweed farming, carbon sequestration, water purification, biofuel applications. So again, something we're extremely excited about, because if we can do this in the bay or in the ocean, off of the coast here, the potential to scale this up is tremendous. So another incredible pilot project. Next slide, please. And there's just a picture that you see there of the vertical columns with some shellfish and the seaweed there on the right. Next slide, please. The next pilot project is blue technology. It's called EcoSpheres. This is a company that is the exclusive licensee of NASA. NASA scientists created this bioremediation technology. They're called EcoSpheres. They are literally these spears that are inserted into sediment at the bottom of the bay, and they absorb PCB contamination and essentially destroy it. The EcoSpheres are then disposed of where it's safe to dispose of them. And again, this has wide, broad applications, especially in places where it's not practical to dredge contaminated sediment in deep water. In other areas where you have hotspots of contamination that are harder to get to, this technology is helping us clean up the bay. And as there are additional demands in the future for land and water use, but contamination is an issue, we need economical ways of remediating that contamination so that we can create opportunities for economic development and so forth. Next slide, please. That's just a picture of the EcoSpheres there. Pretty cool. Next slide, please. And those are, some of the folks involved there. Really excited about this project. Next slide, please. Okay, and this next one is one that I'm, very interested in. It's called e-concrete. This is a bioenhancing type of concrete that essentially creates habitat for marine flora and fauna. So these pieces of bioenhancing concrete fit together like Lego pieces, and we can use them to create artificial infrastructure, green infrastructure is what we like to call it, to help armor shorelines, for example, to help create green buffers to help accommodate sea level rise. This green accommodation, green infrastructure, living shorelines, this is really critical when it comes to adapting to sea level rise and preventing the type of damage that you saw from extreme weather events along the coast, like with Hurricane Sandy in New York. If we can inexpensively use bioenhancing concrete to, where appropriate, armor shorelines instead of using traditional riprap, which if you go down to the San Diego Bay around Harbor Island and Shelter Island, you'll see these massive rocks and pieces of concrete that were used as riprap. We can do better than that. So this eco-concrete literally creates artificial tide pools, but with the structural integrity of any other concrete or steel infrastructure that you could go with instead. Next slide, please. There's just a picture of the Lego blocks, the bioenhancing concrete and the artificial tide pool that you see there. Next slide. So here on this slide is some projects that we have in the works. We're evaluating them right now. And again, environmental benefits is what we're really focused on. And look, as the country and the globe starts to move more towards a green economy, these technologies are going to be at the vanguard of that transformation, of that transition. And so here you see a company that generates energy from wave power, underwater robotics, another aquaculture project, and stormwater monitoring. So this is really what we're focused on. Again, is these projects with environmental co-benefits. Next slide, please. Okay, so we don't do any of this. We can't do any of this successfully by ourselves. This again requires collaboration and partnerships, which we have many of, and we're very fortunate to live in a region with such strong academic and research institutions. The Scripps Institute of Oceanography, for example, is a strong partner. All of the universities, labor groups are important because they bring workers to the table who help us accomplish all of this. The business community, but also other government agencies. Next slide, please. One of those agencies is a federal agency, NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Back in 2016 through 2018, we worked with them and the State Lands Commission of California to basically map the San Diego Bay with the 3D spatial mapping technology so that we could identify every single part of the bay, of the water column, the bottom of the bay, the coastline, to determine all of its physical characteristics and also the use patterns in every dimension. So obviously there can be many conflicts under the water and on top of the water and along the water. And so we needed to determine if we're going to make decisions about where we can test technology, deploy technology, where we can farm seaweed or shellfish, we need to know exactly what's going on. And so working with NOAA and the State Lands Commission, we created a tool, an online tool, to essentially go to any point in the water, on top of the water, along the water, and get all of the characteristics from all of the data that has been input that was collected as part of that project from every potential source. Government databases, private data from private enterprise, and we're creating an open source tool so that anybody can go in there, export the data, play with the data, and help create applications from that data. And so we're excited about that. We couldn't have done that without NOAA. Next slide, please. So this is Ballast Point, where those little yellow arrows go, and there's a photo there of what is the Navy's undersea warfare command center. We are working with the Navy. We created a partnership back in 2018 when I was chairman of the port to allow us to use with our Blue Economy Incubator companies, to the extent necessary, the Navy's underwater test bed to test some of these technologies, have the benefit of these government engineers and experts to help, test this technology and bring it to market. So this is very unique. I hope that Ballast Point isn't, when you hear Ballast Point next time, you don't just think of craft beer, but you also think of blue tech, blue technology. Next slide, please. This is also, really interesting, and we're not the only ones in the world who are working on this. It can take many forms, and it can be done in many ways. In Canada, Canada has an interesting way of looking at some of these projects. They have what are called, trying to think what they're a corporation, crown corporations. These corporations are wholly owned by either the Canadian federal government or a province. And in this case, there is a crown corporation called InnovaCorp, and it's a venture capital fund that the province of Nova Scotia has created to basically do what we're doing at the Port of San Diego. So here you see their Center for Ocean Ventures and Entrepreneurship. I would love to have one of those here in the San Diego Bay on our waterfront somewhere, where they are doing the same thing that we're trying to do. They're trying to support startup, emerging blue technology and aquaculture companies. And we have entered into a memorandum of understanding so that we can share information, we can collaborate, we can cooperate, we can help direct companies that may have an application that is better fit there rather than here. So only through creating these partnerships, collaborating, cooperating, coordinating, are we going to be able to really put the pedal to the metal and advance these industries. Next slide, please. All right, so that was, I don't know how long that took me, but that was the presentation. I'm really grateful again. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I hope everyone enjoyed the presentation.
Well, thank you so much, Commissioner Castellanos. It was a truly interesting presentation, especially I really like also when in the beginning you mentioned the challenges because of the global crisis Port of San Diego is facing, but also you highlighted the good news, which always by diversifying our portfolio and also relying on innovation, we could always seek new opportunities. And I think one of our goals also to hold these webinars is making sure that we are actually infusing hope and also providing solutions, focusing on how we become innovative actually. So with that being said, we would like to open actually for Q&A. In the middle of your presentation, I saw Yusuf actually, Al-Mohannadi raised his hand. Yusuf, are you able to type your question? And now I can see also another question actually. So
I actually allowed Yusuf to, his audio can be taken, he can unmute himself. Maybe not.
All right, maybe he cannot actually. So
Are you able to unmute yourself, I think?
I can do it actually. Let me, Yusuf, I'm going to actually, just a second. I know Dr. Nayert and also Yusuf Al-Mohannadi, I see they have raised their hands. Unmute. Let me just do that. Okay. Yusuf, can you? I think you are on mute. If you get.
So I'm getting a number of questions here in the messaging.
Yes,
so if you don't mind, I'm just gonna jump in here.
Perfect. That would be perfect, actually.
First question from Ho is, how many cargo container vessels can the port accommodate at one time? I'm an attorney, so I'll give you one of my favorite answers. It depends. It depends on the type of cargo vessel, what it's importing. We import about 300 million bananas a month. through our 10th Avenue Marine Cargo Terminal next to Barrio Logan. Depending on the vessel and what it's bringing in, that will affect the logistics of any other cargo vessel that's trying to berth. So it depends. Sometimes we can only have 2 vessels at a cargo terminal. Theoretically, we could have up to 5, for example, in National City. Next question, does NOAA information and data analysts provide services regarding process for various studies? That's a good question. I think the answer to that is yes. Anyone can email me at the port. That's rcastellanos@portofsandiego.org. And for example, with respect to that question, if you email me, I can get you the answer to that specifically and point you in the right direction. Next question. Are you working with Tijuana to manage the hazardous waste coming over into our baylands and oceans? We are. We're also suing the federal government, the International Boundary and Water Commission, to stop those cross-border transboundary flows. We brought a lawsuit back in 2018 with the city of Imperial Beach and the city of Chula Vista. We actually have a trial date set for next year. Those flows are a violation of the U.S. Clean Water Act. We have about 30 to 60 million gallons a day of toxic sewage flowing across the border. That is completely unacceptable. It's been going on for way too long. The port has directly impacted land. We actually own the land that is on the ocean side of Imperial Beach. So the ocean front in Imperial Beach is actually Port of San Diego's land. So we are directly impacted by that, and we are suing to get the funds necessary to build infrastructure on our side of the border to stop those flows. There was a question about interns at the Port of San Diego. Yes, although it's all subject to the budget situation, and right now in this proposed budget for this coming year, we are cutting back on interns and temporary workers. So that's as a result of the COVID crisis.
Mr. Castellanos, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, great. Okay, that was my question. First of all, very interesting. I've lived here for over 40 years, and I never even realized there was so much going around on the port. I know Seaport Village was always my hotspot, all the restaurants and everything, but it's so fascinating, everything that you've shared. My question is getting to the internships, especially for data analysts, is that so many companies are able to produce reams of data, lots and lots of data, but it takes special attention to be able to reduce the data to meaningful information. And I know a lot of companies can't do that, and a lot of organizations don't have the people to take advantage of that. And all the businesses that you were mentioning were so fascinating. And it seems to me they were very information intensive in terms of where not only the proper places were to provide the different benefits that the companies wanted to produce, but it seems to me that would be a very information intensive set of studies and etc. And I was just wondering if there was a way or a set of connectivity where our students could get involved. We have students that specialize in data analytics, and they could almost be like a concierge for companies that don't have the internal resources that could be helpful to keep a lot of the development moving in terms of the data. I'm sorry, please go ahead.
Well, first of all, I appreciate it. It sounds like an offer, and it's an offer that is already been made by Dr. Nadiri, and we are already actually working on evaluating what those partnerships might look like, so that we can work with you all and the expertise that you all have for that purpose and any others that are applicable and helpful to the Port of San Diego. So thank you for the offer. Somebody beat you to it, but certainly it's something that we will explore with you and see if there's an opportunity for a win-win.
Well, I think having Dr. Nadiri involved definitely assures us that we will have and maintain a connection. So thank you, Dr. Nadiri, for stealing my thunder.
Well, I wanted to highlight also Commissioner Castellanos. Professor Nayert is one of our amazing faculty for School of Management and Leadership who cares about like, you know, our students. He was, when I am also alumni from California School of Management and Leadership, and it has been my honor. He was part of my dissertation committee. I've learned a lot from him. So thank you, Professor Nayert, for always, like, you know, thinking about our students and also thinking about building the relationship with local organizations. So yes, we discussed with Port of San Diego team to see how could we leverage our relationship so that, you know, in terms of like how we could support their professional development of their employees as well as also our students could engage. So there are many ways as a, like, you know, local organizations, we could definitely collaborate. And you probably know this favorite quote that I always use. I say, I think it's African proverb, says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go long, far, go together. And I think this is especially this time, not only this time, but also it's important we all come together because we need to go fast and far. And we need to work together. And this is how we are coming together for this one. So thank you, Dr. Nayert, for your comments and also suggestion, actually. So any other question? I see Sheila, actually, she's following on her question. Commissioner Castellanos, can you see that?
Yes, I can.
So we will be solving the Tijuana issue. Should we offer to work with them to resolve?
Yeah, so I am cautiously optimistic that we have taken a very large step over the course of the last 6 months. As a result of the litigation, as well as some very intensive lobbying efforts in Washington, D.C., we were able to get a $300 million commitment into the new trade agreement with Mexico and Canada, the USMCA. And that $300 million was allocated to border infrastructure meant to deal with cross-boundary pollution, transboundary pollution. The EPA recently announced that the full $300 million would be deployed to the issue that we're facing here. That's good news. There has been a set of projects that has been studied and proposed by the County of San Diego, which also has a lot of affected land in that area, which the EPA is now going to evaluate. So we have a list of projects, there's funding. Now we will have, you know, some additional evaluation, but from the Port of San Diego's perspective, what we need is, we need a sense of urgency from the EPA. We need action, and we need some sort of timeline. And so we are watching that carefully. We're working with them carefully. And if we don't see the action and urgency that this issue deserves, it's a public health issue and an environmental issue and an economic issue, then we will prosecute our remedies under federal law to the fullest and maximum extent.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a question in the chat box from Brenda.
Okay, so is it ironic that we have a blue incubator and yet suffer a drought? What are the up and coming companies that could possibly solve this? This is from Brenda.
Yeah, that's, I suppose that is ironic, especially when you're right next to the ocean, right? So, you know, that begs the question about desalination technology. Certainly, desalination technology is a very San Diegan technology. In fact, the reverse osmosis membrane was invented at the Port of San Diego, over near where the airport is today. The airport, by the way, is also on port property. So there are a number of companies that work on desalination and other technologies, none of which have applied, to my knowledge, the port for any assistance through the Blue Economy Incubator, but that doesn't mean that they have not. There is a company, I'm trying to remember the name of it, that actually, as you may know, up off the coast of Carlsbad, I think Poseidon is the name of that company. They are operating a desalination plant that was completed just a few years ago. Of course, that technology does not come without a lot of controversy with respect to its environmental impacts. So it's all, water purification, reuse, recycling, desalination, reservoir capacity, conservation. There's a whole number of things that we need to do to diversify our water supply and make sure that it's safe and that it's secure.
Thank you so much. Any other questions or comments?
I had a quick question, if I can ask. So the various initiatives, incubators are very high tech. There's a lot of technology in the board and the blue economy here. And as we move forward with all of this, I was wondering, what kind of background what kind of training and background makes someone successful in managing these very high-tech industries and initiatives?
Well, that's a great question. So look, obviously STEM is, I think, critical, right? But so is business administration, right? Where science and technology and the skills associated with all of that science and math and engineering converge with the strategic and tactical skills and knowledge and vision that come through business management, enterprise, venture capital. That all has to converge. So to the extent that there are programs that are helping scientists view the world to some extent through the venture capital and economic development prism, that's really important, especially when it comes to innovation. We cannot afford to be compartmentalized in silos where you have the scientists and the engineers in one silo, and then you have the venture capitalists in another. We have to figure out a way to always converge those people, bring those people together, and always try to think about how we can leverage those skills, that knowledge. So we really, when you think of an incubator, an accelerator, we hope to bring all of those folks together. But look, it's not just the high technology. If you're into farming and shellfish farming and any kind of farming, agricultural studies, I mean, that obviously is his own course of study, but all sorts of skills are required here. And this is exciting because we're talking about jobs and training that people don't think about. Think of these job titles: marine spatial planner, underwater robotics technician, aquanaut, and jobs that haven't even been invented yet, right? We don't even know where this innovation will take us and what kind of jobs there will be. We're working right now with the Chula Vista Elementary School District to create a pathway to water-dependent industry. And so, opening the eyes of young kids in Chula Vista is it's a community of color, primarily, lower socioeconomic reality. And so, just showing kids what is out there and what is possible, that will help, get kids on the pathways that we need to get on to acquire the skills that we need to really make a real difference when it comes to accelerating these industries. And I want to, mention something that is also ironic. There are children in San Diego County, and Southeast San Diego, and City Heights, and South Bay that have never been to the ocean. They've never seen the ocean. That's incredible. It's hard to believe. And many of the folks on this call may not even believe it, but it's absolutely true. We have deserts in our communities where people haven't even seen the ocean. Children haven't seen the ocean. If you don't see the ocean, how are you supposed to develop a passion for marine biology or think about these potential career options in these spaces? So, it's really incumbent on all of us and our public education school system and these economic development corporations that we have throughout the county, educational institutions, to reveal what is possible. And this webinar is part of that. So thank you for helping show and tell what's possible.
That is so exciting. I have a technology background, and I often, when I work with community initiatives, I sometimes lament the fact that people think technology is the shadow of what Silicon Valley is, to some extent what LA is. And I love the title of your talk, Blue Economy. We need to introduce that, especially in San Diego. This is also technology. This is in fact much more basic, high-tech, current, future technology. And for San Diego, this would be something we should really push. And there's a lot of on the job training that would get the kids the pathway you described, as well as whatever they are being prepared for STEM degrees. They will be ready with the on-the-job training. So I'm so glad you told us that.
For sure. And just sort of I guess I want to really emphasize that people should let their imagination run loose here. The Silicon Valley is what the Santa Clara Valley came to be known, right? There's no reason why the San Diego Bay shouldn't come to be known as the Blue Tech Bay someday. This is possible. We can do this here. We just have to stay focused and make sure that we are fostering our partnerships and that we are committed to this. And at the Port of San Diego, I think we are. And we're trying to build it into our DNA so that, whether, as commissioners come and go and I'm no longer serving in that capacity, that it has become a priority for the organization and one that persists, notwithstanding, changes in personnel or leadership and whatnot.
Thank you. Commissioner Castellanos, for the last question, I just wanted to ask, now more than ever, actually, we realize the importance of, triple bottom line for the organization, which is people, planet, profit at the same time. And we need to focus on new practices, innovative practices that supports triple bottom line, which I can clearly see how Port of San Diego is forward thinking in terms of focusing on the triple bottom line and being environmentally sustainable with all the project, and also it brings long-term success for the organization. What would be, for the final words, what would be your suggestion, and also how could we bring leadership commitments in the other organizations also, so that with all the challenges we have with the climate change and also our environment, and also for the next generation, it's not clear what we are going actually to keep for them, is that how could we make this one as a priority for the organization so that they start to think, invest, because that's how we could bring long-term success. What is your suggestion? What final thoughts and words?
Yeah, so, there are many areas, whether it's economic development or the development of technology or social change, equity, where the government is in the single best position to accelerate changes just because of the nature of government. So my question will be very specific to government. This Blue Economy Incubator that I mentioned, as I said, required a commitment in our budget for 5 years of $1 million a year for 5 years. Your budget as a government agency is your blueprint for your priorities. And so every government agency has a budget process every year. It is incumbent on people from the private sector, from the nonprofit sector, community-based and faith-based organizations, when they want to see the government move in a particular direction, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. When we start to see people lobbying and advocating and sending us letters, as many do, who are organized or are traditional stakeholders, who do it all the time, or some are just gadflies, right? And they participate and they are loud, but people need to participate. And if this webinar helps stoke some interest in the folks who are listening to pay a little bit more attention to the agendas of government agencies. Everything is online now. Everything is online. These meetings and agendas have to be legally noticed in advance so the public can see. Comments can be submitted online, through emails, on the phone. Once we get back to normal, in person, we have to hear from you. We have to hear from the people. And I think you're seeing right now that when the people talk, and then when the people, sometimes they yell and, you know, protest, and sometimes they riot. But the people have to tell us what direction they want us to go in. And that's how you will get the attention of the policymakers. And that's how things will be prioritized in budgets. And that's how we move in that direction, is through the expenditure of money. That's what government has. It has money, and it has the ability to regulate and legislate and lead and be innovative.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your insight with us. Actually, it's just like, you know, I want to say thank you also to your team at Port of San Diego. Really, it was a fantastic collaboration through this project together. And we truly appreciate you graciously accepted our invite and shared your wisdom with us, and also provided solutions and also new ideas that, like, you know, in terms of even we as higher education, we could focus more to provide the talent for those type of emerging jobs, and also to those type of jobs that relevant to blue economy, and also is more helping to our environment being more sustainable as well. So with that being said, I want to say, if you have any final notes, Dr. Kumar, Commissioner Castellanos, please share your final thoughts. And also I will have a couple announcements, and we could wrap up this session.
I just want to thank Alliant International for the opportunity. Thank you, Dean Kumar, Dr. Nadiri, all of the participants. And I just encourage everyone to think big, innovate, accelerate, and get involved. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Kumar?
Thank you. And it was an honor to listen to the whole thing. I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I want to be able to continue not just the connection and the collaboration, but bring it back to our students. And some of what you said will be some items that we will emphasize to them. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to say, I want to appreciate also each and every one of you who joined today. Thank you for joining us. And many thanks to Commissioner Castellanos, as well as Port of San Diego, for partnering with us. Thank you, Dr. Kumar, for always supporting our students, our university, and also always encouraging new innovative ideas, and all the faculty and students who joined today, all the participants of today, actually. So I will wrap up with a couple announcements. So please mark your calendar. On June 25th, we are going to have our second Hospitality Forward speaker series, which we are holding it in partnership with Battelle Institute of Hospitality. We will share with you the webinar link very soon. Please stay tuned. And with that being said, I want to wrap up just saying that, like, you know, if you have any questions or comments about our programs, or interested about our programs or partnership opportunities, you can always reach out to me or any of our team members to discuss about your questions or comments, or anything that we might support you. I have added my contact information and my phone number here. So thank you for joining us, and I hope from this wonderful presentation by Commissioner Castellanos, we all kind of, like, you know, it gave me quite a bit of hope of, like, you know, still. First of all, is that if we are innovative, and also if we are trying to make long-term plans that are supporting greater good of humanity, planet, as well as also, of course, we want to be successful in businesses also. We could always have long-term success, and it always helps us and serves us in difficult challenges, actually. Yes. So thank you for joining us, and I hope to see you in our next webinar. Thank you, everyone. Have a good one.
Thank you, Leila. To you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. It was wonderful.
Thank you, Dr. Nair. Thank you, everyone who joined.